And the sweetest part of it is this crank. I just love this. Now, by cranking it, you are charging the battery. Now, this is one of the best things to have, because after a while, the power bank went. If you run out of charge and you can't have no sun and you don't have anywhere, just crank. Just crank. Welcome back to our channel, and thank you once again for joining us in this another day in the life of living on Autistic Edge. I am Terry Ann Elaine, proud autism mom, and we are here to share with you tips and tricks of how we navigate through our journey right here on Autistic Edge. So as you know, we have just gone through Hurricane Beryl. I have been through Hurricane Gilbert, and I have also been through Ivan. And those two hurricanes, they were pretty catastrophic. Preparation is to ensure safety and comfort as best as possible in the worst time. All right. Now, so we're going to talk about a few tips. You should have known by now as parents, you should have known by now some of the other tips that you should be putting in place and what you should be looking out for. However, we are going to talk specifically about our son on the autism spectrum, because having special needs children during this time is just no joke. It's just nothing to think about. I mean, things are already tough dealing with them on a daily basis, and especially when we have to go through these times. But number one, we want to first look at our safe space. Now, what is a safe space? Now, look at your surrounding, do your assessment to your house, and make sure you have a safe space in your house. If you can't identify a safe space in your house, I think you should relocate before, right? But our roof had two parts. We had a small section of the house's deck and a small section of the house's roof. Even though the roof seemed to be a solid structure, we never had any damage. However, we were not sure about the roof for a category 4. So as much as the roof is fairly new, category 4, we don't know what that holds. I've never experienced a category 4. All right. And then category 4 head on, no. But anyway, we identified a safe space in the house where we would have retreated to. One of the things I did, I introduced Alex to our safe space, because this was a smaller room in the house, right? So we introduced Alex to the safe space, made sure he was familiar with it. I prepared it ahead of time. We packed up, reorganized, and everything in that safe space to ensure that all three of us were able to hold in that safe space, and that was our intention, to ride it out should in case, because we have to also remember you can't move in the middle of the wind blowing and all of that. So you have to find a safe space and wait until it is also safe for you to move to other areas. So we identified a safe space. We introduced him to the safe space, make sure that he go in and run around a little and feel a little comfortable. So therefore, if we had to move to it, it would not be so sudden and it would be too frightening for him. So we introduced him to the safe space. All right. The next thing is number 2, we built an emergency kit. And as you know, your emergency kit should have first aid kit. You need to have, now first aid kit is a total different topic, but we'll just tell you first aid kit right now. Some of the other items we included in our emergency kit were comfort items for Alex. And when I say comfort items, know your child and to know what makes your child comfortable. So if it's a blanket for your child, if it's a sensory toy for your child, and those stuff. Now, we had a sensory toy. Now, you know, Alex always fidget with his Ziploc bags. So we made sure he always have one. but we made sure we had at least a minimum about 6 to 10 bags, additional bags. We made sure we had that. This is something that will keep him calm. Now, I also pack his coloring books and his crayon. At one coloring book and his crayon. Now, reason for that, one of the calming thing for Alex Xavier is coloring. Alex would just color even a blank page. He would just start coloring a blank page, and that would kind of keep him calm. So we allow him to do a lot of coloring. And so I make sure that if I have to leave my home, I have a coloring page. So I had an entire book and a new pack of crayon. Yes, I packed that in it. And when you're packing food, and of course it would be non-perishable, make sure that you identify things that your child prefers. So we know that you're gonna pack your bread, your bun, but make sure that when you're packing snacks and food items, make sure that items, non-perishable items that you know your child will eat and prefer, that's what you need to put in it. Now, when packing sensory toys, now the hurricane, the wind from the hurricane, the lightning and the thunder sometimes, those comes with noise. And if your child has a sensitivity to noise, now that can be very frightening and that will put them in a mode of anxiety. So what you normally do for that, for those who are able to wear earplugs, you may want to pack a headphone or earplugs for their ears. So when you start having these noise, they are able to put this over their ears. So, or the noise canceling headsets would be better for them. But whichever one you use, you know what you do on a daily basis. Just make sure that you have that packed ahead of time. All right. Now, if you have to relocate, you may have to go out in the rain. So just make sure that you have a change of clothes, and you can talk about what is happening or what is about to happen. You can use social stories to tell the child what is happening. Now, I must say, I give thanks to my parent support group, because in our parent support group, we started communicating a little before the hurricane. And one of our parents, Auntie Sasha, put in the group that parents, please make sure that you talk to your child about what is happening. To be honest, I never thought about that. I was busy putting everything together. And of course, I have a list of everything that I'm going to put together. So I had my phone and I had a detailed list on my phone of everything that I think about. I don't leave it to chance for me to remember. I put it on the list, and as soon as we have identified those, I check them out. So, she made the recommendation that we need to talk to our children about what is happening. Now, I realized that there was a change in Alex's mood, and he was a little bit anxious, and I think that was coming from us because we were just moving quickly with everything that we were doing, tried to do, because we have to be balancing work at the same time we are balancing preparation and all of that. So it was like a quick thing. We have to be moving, and remember, the closer you get to the hurricane, or the closer you get to the hurricane hitting us, I mean, things are going to be becoming more anxious. People are going to be running up and down. So we had to start our preparation a little earlier out before the crowd. So the moment we hear that the storm was somewhere out there behind the lesser Antilles, we started packing and doing stuff from then. So I had a little talk with Alex Xavier. We tell him about storm and what a storm is. I don't think he really get the concept, but at least I tried to explain. But to be honest, guys, I just never had enough time to tell him exactly what this was about. But we did talk about it, and we talk about the wind and all of that. Now, throughout this time, you have to make sure that you stay informed. So every now and again, would keep in touch with what's going on in the news, what category it was, and we were looking at, like I said to my husband, listen, if it's a category 3, 4, we can stay home. I was doubtful as to whether I want to stay home. My husband was in between us staying home versus us moving, and I said, all right, what you want to do. So anyway, the final decision was we would stay, but then we know what our evacuation and our emergency plans were. So the moment I realized we weren't moving before the hurricane, and we took that decision not to move before the hurricane, now all the water shoes come out. So we had to decide which shoes was the best shoes for the weather, both for everybody, and those shoes were at the doorway. So we had our water shoes or Crocs for those who have Crocs, because these are easier. Even if your foot get wet or something in it, you can dry those easily. So we had those. Stay informed. We had our little radio. We were glued to our television, social media, and anywhere that we could get reliable information. So you don't want to be hearing things from just about any and anybody. Make sure that you're tuned into the reliable channels for the appropriate information. And I think at the last minute, we also knew that it took a slight shift south, so we weren't getting the eye again. And I think that's the time we decided that, hey, we were going to stay home. Communicate with others is key. Don't take things for granted. It's best to be prepared so that you know what you're dealing with. Inform your neighbors, your friends, or emergency first responders about your child's need. Now, what was very helpful and calming and reassuring for us is that we have very good neighbors, and we have excellent neighbors, I must say. I wouldn't even say very good. We have excellent neighbors, and they know of our situation. They were very caring. They were preparing for us. Unless it's structural damage to the building, they would be in a better position than us, right? So they were very helpful and reassuring. If you want to come before the storm, fine. If you want to stay, and if anything happens, you come, fine. And they even help us mapping out the way, how to, where not to walk and where the wind might be coming from. And yeah. So it was very reassuring to know that persons understood our need and they were looking out for us. They were caring for us. Now, we kept in touch with everybody, with our neighbors throughout the storm, and that was important. So persons were checking in on us and we were checking in on them as well. So that was very important, because when you have a special need child, the minimum disturbance you want during this time. All right. Now, one of the key things is to stay calm. Now, it's difficult to tell somebody in a disaster like this to stay calm. People scream, people do all sorts of stuff. But if you practice ahead of time, you will likely, if it's even 50% of it, you will get it. I was pretty anxious coming into this period, and my anxiety was driven because of Alex Xavier. So I felt like I was over prepared when putting things in place for him, right? He picked up my emotions, and you could see after a time that he was a little anxious himself, right? But I have to learn how to do my deep breathing. Okay, Terry, all right, this is what is going to happen. All right, now what I did at the beginning, when we actually started having the heavy winds, I took him to one of the windows that it was safe enough. It was safe enough, but it was not, we didn't have a shutter over that window, but the location of the window was very safe enough for us to view on the outside. So I took him to that window and allowed him to see what was going on the outside. And you could see a little, nervousness in terms of like, mommy, what is this? You could just see that question. And he just drew closer to me. Now, the moment he drew closer to me, I know that he was a little fearful. So, then I hugged him, I kept him close, and we decided that we were going to stay close together. So no matter what. So in the house, we would stay in one room. So if it's the living room, that's where everybody will be. So the key here, we are going to stick together throughout this. All right. So guys, when we say stick together, we stick together, because you see, when we're ready to use bathroom, everybody go bathroom one time, because of one light we turn on to go to bathroom. Of course, I did a little practicing of my calming techniques, because I felt like I was getting anxious even before Alex Xavier. So I had to start the practicing the calming techniques as well. All right. Now, there is one thing that I thought about not before the hurricane, and I don't have one of this, but I would recommend, as I'm planning to get one, so I would recommend that as parents, you may want to think about it, especially if you have children that are nonverbal, and that is a medical bracelet. Because in the event that you have some emergency that you have to be separated, it would be ideal to ensure that they have a medical bracelet. So if they can't say what their name is, at least the medical bracelet would have their name, what their situation is, and a contact information. That I think would be very, very important to have. All right. So if you have to split up, your child may need to go to one neighbor and you end up go to the other neighbor, because you just don't know what can happen. You can be moving to your neighbor, and in the middle of moving to your neighbor, there's a gush of wind that separate both of you, or separate the child from the parents, or you just never know. So you want to make sure that this information is available, because who rescue you may not be somebody who know you or know of the condition. So make sure that that information is available. All right. And in the interim, if you don't have a medical bracelet, you can always have a tag, whether on the bag or label the clothes or something. Label the clothes ahead of time with information somewhere on the clothes, that at least that is something that you can use to make sure that you identify the child afterwards. All right. Now, if you're in doubt about your situation, move before the time. All right. Now, we were pretty much, even though we were a little doubtful, the house was fairly new. So we had some amount of confidence that yes, we would have been able to go through. What we were not sure about is just a category 4, because none of us have been through a category 4 before. But we did some assessment, and then we say, all right, plan A, worst case, plan B, worst case, plan C. Guys, there are 26 letters in the alphabet. Plan out the whole of them. So if A no work, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, all right, plan out the whole of them. These tips are not only for autistic children, there are other special need children also. And even if you're caring for the elderly, look at your situation, know your situation. If you have somebody moving in a wheelchair, you may want to move those persons before. Don't stay back and guess whether or not you need to move them, because guess what? It's more difficult to be wheeling somebody in a wheelchair when you have a disaster. So if the person needs a wheelchair, move them out. It's easier to come back home when it is safe and nothing happens than trying to move them during the storm. A few things that we also had, which I want to share with you, is lighting. Now, when you're having all that noise from the wind and all of that, it can be scary when it's too dark. So we shut down our power before the hurricane because the lights were going in and out. So to ensure that nothing was damaged, we turned off our breaker. So we had these lights. So these are battery operated lights. You can always use the rechargeables, as well as this uses 3 AAA batteries. So you can use rechargeable batteries as well as you can use the regular AAA batteries. Now we have about probably 4 or 6 of these, and it's just a tap in the middle that turns the light on. We would just place these down on a surface, or we move around with this. Now we use them one at a time. And because we stick together, we huddle together throughout the period, we never need to use more than one at a time. So that is also another tip. If the family huddles together, then you find that using up your resources and your battery powers might be less, and you have more batteries to serve for longer periods. So even though we had 6 of this, we only use one at a time. And we only use one during this hurricane. And because we got what power pretty quickly, we never had to use it for any extended period. But we only use one during this period. All right. So we had 6 of them. Now, another thing to have is also a battery pack. Now, we had these in our cars. All right, so we ensure that these were charged, and we had them indoors. So we had two USB outlets. We were able to use these to charge our phones even after the power went out. We also have a light on this. It can be charged by your regular electricity, as well as you can be charged in your car as well. Now we can use these for our phones, laptops, and those kind of stuff if needed. Now, when you say stay informed, one of the things that really went very early in the game was connectivity. So Digicel went down, Flow went down. Now we had this radio, and let me tell you a little bit about this radio, because this radio is what we use for the entire time throughout the storm. Now it has AM and FM band, and you have a pole, so we were able to pick up these band throughout the hurricane. Now it has a flashlight. It also has a SOS light, so if you are in danger, you can always flick that light. It has this light at the top as well. Pull it up, all right, and we have this light. Now this light is more like a lower light. Now there was a time when we went off to sleep in the middle of all that was happening, and we kept the radio on, and we also just lift this little light here, which was not much light, but it gives a glow in the room when it was dark. If you open it out wider, right, but it's not a very bright light. So when we kept it half closed like this, we had a nice glare in the room, and we were able to sleep without it being complete darkness, because our shutters were down, so the room was very dark, right? It was helpful for Alec. The place didn't have to be very dark, where he was just out of it. Now, my favorite part of this light is how it is charged. So it can use your regular outlet from your electricity to charge this. To charge this, right? You can also, it has a solar panel at the top, so it can be charged by solar as well. And the sweetest part of it is this crank. I just love this. Now, by cranking it, you are charging the battery. So even if you have no solar and you have no power, you can charge your battery by doing this crank. Now, this is one of the best things to have, because after a while, the power bank went. After a while, our phone batteries went down, even though we had source of how to charge, or because we also had an inverter and we had that source. But the radio stood throughout the entire time. We never lost power, and guess what? We never had to crank it. It was fine. I charged it up prior to the hurricane, so it kept us straight through until power was back, which was not very long for us. But this is if you don't have anything else, this is a must-have. And I'm going to leave a link in the description below where you can find, and even the lighting. I'm going to leave a link for the lighting. I'm going to leave a link for the power bank, because these things are stuff you must have. Now, if your child is somebody who likes to have their tablet throughout, now here's another sweet pea with this. It also has a USB section. So by cranking this, you can charge your phone from the USB section. So even if your other power sources are down, you can charge your phone or even your laptop from this. And again, if you run out of charge and you can't have no sun and you don't have anywhere, just crank. Just crank. I find it fun to crank it, even when we never need it. Yeah, it just feels nice, like a little toy. Yeah, so this is my new toy, right? Now, thanks to my cousin for giving me this one here, because this was one of the best things that I think happened to us during burial. So if you haven't had one yet, don't wait until the next time come. Make sure you have one right now, because as I tell you, it have the SOS light. It just a little something that have everything. It was very useful for us. So we never miss news during the time. So we never had to depend on social media. Once the news station never go down, we were very much on. By following these steps or these tips or these strategies, it will help to reduce your anxiety and the confusion that may tend to occur around this time. Make sure you pack minimal. We had 3 knapsack and 1 medication bag. So the plan was, if we have to move, everybody have a knapsack, so everybody know which knapsack they must carry. And the 3 knapsack were placed together in the middle of the living room. Yes, guys, we were that detailed and that ready to move if we had to. So one had all the snacks and stuff, and one had change of clothes, and one had all the little toiletries, and then we had our first aid kit and medication bag. Nobody pack too much something with a weary you down. What you need is just enough to take you through the period of the storm. And the storm no normally lasts for more than probably 8 hours or a day or a couple of hours depending on the speed, right? So don't pack like you're going to live forever. After the hurricane, you can always make other adjustments. You are just moving to be secured during the passage of the hurricane. So just remember that. So with that being said, thank you once again for joining us in this another day in the life of living on Autistic Edge. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that notification bell so the next time we put out another content, you will be notified.